Alright, we're picking this up in a project that's pretty much completed here. We had a tin. This is actually a project that's being done in Revit. It's a building pad on the very top of a very kind of a 30-foot rise there, and a road coming in from the middle of the section there. So basically, what you're looking at here is some sort of tin done very quickly, a geometric tin of a surface at a square mile. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all these corridors that are tended to be made, and how we can kind of learn to. We don't really need to make them all or carry them all around until the very end when we're doing computations. So in this case, learn to grab the corridor there. In other words, on one of the cross sections there, go to corridor properties. You can go out here now. It's really only the top and the datum that we need, so you can go to here when you go to surfaces and start going down to the bottom and work your way up. So we can get rid of that one, that one, that one, that one. Don't get rid of that one. Get rid of the one above it, and above it, and above it, and above it, and you're left with these two surfaces, each of which already have a boundary set from hopefully from the daylight. You're going to hit OK there. Now the final bit you're going to see that's really useful for when you're trying to cut out tins, this tin here, you're going to want to eventually have a tin which cuts out the existing between the catch lines. So we can try to do this. A couple things you're going to learn to do is you're going to learn to generate alignments from corridor. That kicks you into more advanced features, and feature lines from corridor. So you'd like to actually take a feature line from corridor. Now, which feature line is going to be the question? So you're going to try to grab that one. It'll give you a choice, and it is not a feature line. So that's part of the problem sometimes when you're trying to dig within here. What you're trying to get essentially is the daylight line. So you kind of grab around, and it is not a feature line either. So you can try to do alignments from corridor, create a feature line. That's not a feature line. So I think what tends to happen here is you're grabbing onto the surface. So you want to go now to your surfaces and actually make sure that both the datum and the top are not shown. No display, and the same thing there for the top. Right click, surface properties. So that ability to turn these things off to no display becomes kind of important. Now let's see if we can actually now once again grab the corridor and see if we can get a feature line from the corridor as we grab here, zooming in. We hope it's giving me this choice. Now what I'd like to be would be a daylight. You want to grab that daylight probably. Hit OK, slope intercept. You're going to grab a feature line from there. You're going to put it to site 1. That looks reasonable. And then it has now created a feature line. So that feature line is going to be useful later on in terms of projecting down to this surface below here. So that feature line, we're going to hope that we can find it. So right now that corridor, if we go to corridor, it's really difficult to make a corridor not visible. So you go to here, right, refresh, and sooner or later you're going to try to push out those feature lines. And what you're going to see now, I'm going to right now kind of go right to this point here, steering wheel, and see if we can kind of pull this stuff around. You're going to see setting up cameras is going to be much easier to do than what you really want to do. But if you grab there, it should tend to grab, and you're going to see those feature lines, and a lot of that stuff that you see is going to be both 2D on the bottom and 3D up on top. Enter to exit. I'm going to enter. We'll see what we get here when it jumps back at us. We're going to try to zoom in here. So that line there is really an important line when you start trying to map stuff out. It is not the easiest thing to, if you click on it, you see it is a standard, it's a corridor line. So you really want to try to extract that at some point, which is not the easiest bit. But now you can go up above in the 3D space and hopefully find something out here that is a feature line. So if we see there, you can notice how much data this generates when you're in there. Those are all kind of points, and you can make them smaller and bigger sometimes. If you do that, now they look a little bit more reasonable. That there now is an auto feature line. Now what you would like to do at some point is to project that feature line down to the surface. So you can add a surface, add to surface's break line, and then it's going to give you a choice of that one, and that's the one you want to present it to. Hope this takes, because that then gives you an ability to cut that out of your tiler surface later on. So we're going to hit OK here, and we're going to go ahead and say OK and see how it does. It's creating. Now you very often would do that with something that's on the edge, right? All right, so it now hopefully has done that as a break line. It's still computing, still working. Don't know that that's good or bad. You probably would do that with a copy of the surface, and you don't do this until the very end. Your intent here is that you then have a pretty easy thing to go ahead and to, when you look at your surfaces and your tins, to cut out the heart basically, or those areas of your plan which are going to be kind of either cut out or added on top of. So there's a lot of kind of use to those feature lines, and again, they come out of the corridor. So that's working awfully hard here. I don't like the look of it, but we're going to see now. Go back to V for view, overall plan, set current, OK. We're now the only thing we're interested in right now is basically this surface, really not even the whole lens of it. But I'm going to now go ahead and try to take that surface there and change it to be triangles. I'll just try rock triangles, and you see, and we're going to look in there. It does look like, in fact, it did cut out, did a reasonable job of cutting out a break line at any of those points. Now it's hard to say in this tin whether it's actually done it, but it looks like it's a break line there. We can now go ahead and remember, we can then grab the surface, hitting escape, 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 grab that surface, extract the objects, just the triangles, hit OK. There's a lot going on there. So now we can go ahead and lay ISO, hit undo here. We really want to make sure that we haven't selected anything. Lay ISO, which is isolate layer. You're going to grab that layer that we have here. We're going to send all those out. W block. And we're not going to too worry about that insertion point right now, W block. We're going to learn to grab all, go to an 04, and this is Tyler site with break line. Hit a save here. We're going to select our objects. 000 looks fine to me. Hit OK. It sends that out. So this concept of being able to take that feature line that's on the edge of a corridor and add it to your existing tin to allow what eventually will be a final tin that consists of the existing and the proposed in one fell swoop. So that means you can then model it for surface water, for visualization, and then eventually going back with the underground, the myriad of surfaces that come out. But really, you have to start to realize how important naming is and the like, and how much this data just gets out of hand. So I'm going to include that. I send the data out. Okay, I'm going to hit close. Very often there might be a middle step there. I'm going to just do a bunch of undos here. I'm going to leave that surface around as it was. And now I'm just going to save this project and go into SketchUp. File, save. There will sometimes be a middle step where you've got to go ahead and clean out some of the data that you did not want to send out. But I'm going to go File, Exit. Now you've sent those out. You may have lost some of your kind of coordinate system stuff, but you do want to start coming up within your system of what you're going to carry around from one export to the other. There are programs that tend to lose the coordinate system, so you do want to be aware of that. Like in this case, you want to be aware of coming in here. I'm going to set this up so it fits a little better. You want to be aware of coming into any program immediately. Sometimes you can do just an open, but very often you'd have to do an import. But before you do that, you want to go to Model Info. You want to make sure that you are off on the right here. You're not seeing. You want to make sure that you are in decimal units, that it is feet. I'm going to hit that is good. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to erase. I'm now going to try to do two imports. File, import from the K drive, transfer, collab space, shared final tins, and hopefully you can learn that eventually you've got to make sure that you know what you want to grab. Hit there, we'll see whether it comes in close. It's probably there and in the right spot. Okay, so you've got, and what we're going to see here is you can see where it brought in. Didn't do such a great line. What happened is it just grabbed one side of that road. That's why you see those brake lines as they are. So there's actually a feature line on both sides. So that's something to be aware of, that you want to grab the daylight on both sides of the road, both the feature lines. That will be something to double check. You can see out here in the distance. But now we can try that hill, as was done by a tin. I'm going to try to now to do one more. File, import. This time we'll grab the road. We realize it might not come in the right spot. They'll tend to come in as a block, however. And so that road, close. That road, let's see how the road did. The road is not in the right spot. It got turned around. But you can start to see that it'd be pretty easy to think about what your shifts would be. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Pretty easy to realize. Zoom out a little bit. That all we've blown in this point is basically probably the elevation. So they come in as a group, so you can tend to start bringing things down, as the way case may be, and bring that down with a negative. It'll tend to find your blue direction. So realizing that brought it down too much, but those tins, you could actually export them all at once, and that would be probably a better thing. Once you're very organized, you make sure that you've got these on 2 layers. But as you go here, gotten it pretty close. Go zoom in a little bit more here. I'm going to turn off the edges so you don't have to worry about so much that. Turn off the display edges, and you can kind of start to link what this looks like. I'm going to now see, you can see the 2 projects. I'm going to go ahead one more time and just adjust this, because I knew there was a match out on the outside here. See if I can grab that. You have to realize there's a lot of data, but it's all grouped together, hopefully. That one is not. So if I can go ahead and grab the road, which I'm not able to do here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and realize we're a little bit off, but you can start to see where the value and the lighting can come in. View, turn on the shadows, and all kinds of other things you can do. I'm going to now finally put myself on the road, look down the road, and you can start to think about the visualization. Look to the right. You see our heights and our datums are off a little bit. You want to be just aware of that. We're going to go at 470 feet here, and now we're going to just do a drive down the road. Now what you see now at this point, that road, holding a shift key up, I flumped in the sky, so controlling this with an Xbox controller or some ability of some better interface, you can start to see maybe I want to go at 490 feet, and I'm just kind of going to go up the hill here, try to climb up. It's not letting me if I do a little bit of shifting. So you can realize sooner or later you're going to need to learn to kind of manage driving around. It's actually not as bad as I'm making out to be. I can look at the lighting here, doing photo draping. I'm going to go back down to here, look at the top of the hill and see what it looks like. Put myself at the top of the hill and look down to the road. Once again, you usually have to put yourself above where you're at, and now you're kind of looking down in a vista. That's what the road looks. That's called viewscaping and view shedding. The next thing to do would be to start filling this in with terrain, trees, and the like, once you've done a final surface. So that's going to be kind of the last bit of the visualization. From there you can make cars go down the road, and the rest is then computation. Thanks for listening. And get SketchUp 8 on your computers.